Welcome to American Cannabis. I'm your host, Ellis Smith. I'd like to thank our sponsor, Cannabis Tech. And welcome today. We're going to be talking about Beyond What the Eyes Can See with Rob McCorkle from Emerald Metrics. Rob, thanks for getting on today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So this is another topic that kind of extends from one of our last webcasts that we had, really looking at spectral analysis and that technology. And this is really now focused on more on the indoor side of things versus our last one was using drones and outside. And so, Rob, if you would, give us a little background on who you are, Emerald Metrics, and how you kind of got into the cannabis space.
Yeah, absolutely. So our company was founded by, there's three founders of our company. We came out of DOD and law enforcement. We're all retired, where we all use spectral imaging in various capacities, from law enforcement looking for different issues within cities, nuclear signatures, biochemical signatures, drug labs, things like that. And then we used it overseas, looking for bomb makers in Afghanistan and Iraq, using it in different capacities over there. Over the years, we developed the technology, we brought it back to the States, and we started doing precision agriculture for large corn, wheat, and soy. We were imaging, a couple million acres a year throughout the Midwest, looking at corn, wheat, and soy, looking for anomalies, looking for nitrogen deficiencies, water deficiencies, pest infestation, pesticide drift. We were flying our cameras on the bottom of Cessnas back and forth over these large corn, wheat, and soy crops. Over the years, we've shrunk our technology down. In 2012, I got involved in the cannabis industry. I actually own and operate a 10,000 square foot indoor operation in Portland. And so we decided to see if our technology had legs in the cannabis and hemp field. So we shrunk our cameras down. Now our cameras are about the size of a large cell phone, and we can implement them inside indoor cannabis and hemp operations. Our cameras can either be fixed mounted or mounted on motorized light rail systems that take the camera back and forth in your operations and enable us to look for anomalies and health issues within cannabis and hemp.
Fascinating. I love it. It's about time we get this in the indoor setting. I've been wanting this for years.
Yeah, it's been a challenge getting technology like this to shrink down to not only a size but also a price point that makes it palatable for indoor operations has been a challenge. It's taken us several years working with our imaging camera partners to get the technology where it is. Now our cameras are, we use a 1 terabyte Raspberry Pi, have their own Wi-Fi hotspots. We have long throw and short throw lenses. We can set the algorithms to look for what we're wanting to look for. So yeah, it's been a challenge, but we're there now.
Well, I'm really excited to dive in more and really let our audience know just the true value behind what the technology can do. It can really save you quite a bit of money. It can help you get in front of so many different issues that can arise, whether it's disease, pest, or you're looking at deficiencies and everything, under the sun that the plant can tell you, usually when it's too late versus getting in front of it early on. So I want to go ahead and just kind of pass it on, let you to really kind of dive into this slideshow, and I will interject with questions as they come in and as I feel I have some things that make sense here. So go ahead and let's dive into this slideshow.
Okay, so one of the biggest things we talk to our growers about, and me being a grower also, is one of the biggest issues we have in cannabis is we can't see anything until the plant actually manifests it. So with our technology, we can actually see what we have going on before the human eye can see it. Spectral imaging, if you're not familiar with spectral imaging, I'll give you kind of a quick rundown. What spectral imaging is the ability to detect the spectral code of various anomalies, such as powdery mildew, molds, pythium, botrytis, pests, spider mites, whatever that might be. We actually write algorithms and develop the spectral code so the cameras can see that before you can. So what's a spectral code? A spectral code is a fingerprint. Every biologic in the world refracts, emits, and absorbs light in a certain way. So we get these various anomalies, we find out what that spectral code is, and then we write the algorithms to be able to detect it. So for an example, when we first started getting into cannabis, one of the biggest issues we had with our growers was, how do we detect powdery mildew? What does it look like? It's across the board. Everybody has it in one shape or form, but many people control it, even though they realize that powdery mildew is there no matter what. It's just a matter of whether your environmentals are going to let it bloom. So using our technology, we can see it. We can tell you where it's at. We can detect it before the human eyes can see it, so that the growers can make a decision whether they're going to do the 3 C's: contain it, cure it, or cull it. So as you look through this slide, when we look at the benefits. So when we look at the benefits of our technology, one of the biggest things we try to do for small and larger growers is help with their labor costs. It costs a lot for various growers, depending on their size, to employ people to be, for lack of a better term, leaf flippers. To give you an example, one of our clients, before implementing our technology, uses 20 scouts in their very large greenhouse operation. After full implementation, that is now shrunk down to 5. Because now we can send them exactly where they need to go to look at the areas they need to look at, so that they can target their labor in a way that makes it more palatable and cost effective. We reduce your labor costs, we reduce your risk. We want you to look at those areas of your grow that are having issues. If you're growing in a sea of green, we want to make sure that you're not forgetting about the plants in the middle. It's very hard to send your people into the middle of a grow operation, large sea of green, and get to the middle of your plants without moving a lot of trays, or moving a lot of tables, or possibly damaging plants by digging through them to get to the center. Our cameras are on top of the canopy looking down. By doing that, they enable you to see the areas that you wouldn't see otherwise, and enable you to target what you're doing, whether it's different labor inputs, whether it's making sure your water lines are flowing properly, whether your nutrients are flowing properly. We can detect all of that. When we start looking at facility issues, one of the other things we're doing right now is we're doing facility overviews before people actually either buy buildings or they are starting to build their grow operation. We can tell you if there's legacy issues like black mold on the walls, or whether it's in the HVAC systems, whether it's in the water system. We can look at all those different issues. We can look at your lights. We can tell you if your lights are sending out proper light spectrum. We can tell you if you're having light failures. We had a grow operation the other day that had lights go out in the middle of the night, and they had no idea. Our cameras detected it and was able to give them a notice the next morning as which lights went out. Because when they come in the morning, they were on a 12-12 cycle, so when they came in, their lights were out. They would have had to turn the lights back on in order to see which lights were out. We could see which lights were out because it showed up on the cameras. So, looking at what our technology looks like, looking at what kind of images you guys will be seeing. The next slide is what you're going to be looking at in regards to clones. When you're looking at the clones in this image, the weak clones, not visible to the naked eye, these clones look 100% healthy to the human eye. As growers, we all understand and know that it takes very little energy to keep a clone looking viable. When you're looking at the clone itself, the leaf looks viable, it looks green, it looks vibrant. But our cameras actually are able to look down at the pixel level, the molecular level of the plant, to tell whether or not it is absorbing, emitting, or refracting light at a healthy level. That image that you're looking at right there were clones that were taken by a master cloner. He has a clone operation, and we imaged those because these are clones that he thought were 100% viable. We were able to show him that they were actually only about 60% healthy. And when we go to the next slide, you'll see a tray of clones. So our clonalizer camera is a fixed mount camera that sits above your clone table and can image whole trays of clones and tell you which clones are viable, which ones you should move forward, and which ones you should cull. This technology alone has the capability of increasing your yield up to 10 to 15%, purely by the fact that you're only moving clones forward that are 100% healthy. The image that you're looking at right here, all of these clones look 100% healthy. What we were actually found through the imaging, what we were looking at through the imaging was that they actually had root rot. They actually had root rot in the tray itself. Sorry, I'm having a little problem with the PowerPoint. It keeps going forward on me here, so excuse me for my technology issues. So, do you see that image, Ellis? The one with the three trays?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is great because as a grower, everything can look so good to the naked eye, and by the time it's too late, it's hard to recover from that, and you can lose a tray of 50, a tray of 100. You can lose 1,000 clones overnight or in a matter of a few days before you can actually act or actually react to try to fix it. And so from a grower standpoint, this technology makes so much sense to get ahead of issues that we're going to take you way too long to figure it out by the time it's too late. And so this is just really neat to see how you can really dial this in and utilize this for your, to your advantage.
Well, I mean, we all know that the basis of what our yield's going to be, the quality of the plants that we have, is going to be based upon the quality of clones that you move forward into veg and move forward into flower. So imaging the clones throughout the clone process prior to moving them or prior to putting them into plugs or whatever your medium might be, you're making sure that only those plants that are 100% viable are the ones that you want to move forward. So in our clonalizer system, it comes with a camera, it comes with an arm, and it comes with an app on a pad, on a Samsung pad, that you literally take the picture of the clones. It comes to the pad. The algorithms are right on the app. It tells you whatever level of health you decide you want to utilize to move your clones forward. That's what you set the range at, and it picks out only those plants that are above that range. So as an example, in my grow operation, I only move plants forward that are 90% healthy or more. Other growers, we've got some outside growers, outdoor growers, that will move clones forward and on the hemp side that are 70% healthy because they've got a little longer growth cycle in order to make sure that their clones are viable. I choose to do it my way because, I've got literally 12 weeks to make sure that my clones are going to propagate and be as healthy as possible. So looking at what I'm doing here, sorry, I'm trying to go back again to the slides. It keeps going forward on me here. I can't get back. Hold on just one second, Ellis.
You're all good. Well, technical difficulties, it always seems to get us. It's okay.
It is what it is. It won't let me go back. So as we look through the different clone options, the different clone issues, one of the biggest things we've seen for our growers is the fact that by moving only those clones forward that are 100% healthy, they're able to also deal with systemic issues down the road in veg and flower, because the healthier the clone, the healthier the vegetative plant, and the healthier the flowering plant. So our clone system alone can increase your yield by 10 to 15%. Ellis, what slide do you show it on? What slide does the audience see right now?
I see 14. So I just instant messaged Christine to see if she could help us as well to manage these because we're not able to go back, huh?
Yeah, it won't let me go back because I want to go back to the clone image. Let me see if I can get it to go back here. I apologize to everybody.
That's all right.
I can control the.
Here we go.
It just won't let me go back. All right. Yeah.
Can you actually click on the slide you want to go on versus using the arrows?
No, I'm trying to go back now. It won't let me click on it. It says push to audience. So I think I'm getting back there right now.
I see it now. Okay. Sorry, audience. Please bear with us here.
Okay. So, yeah, there we go. So the next slide now, we're going to talk about powdery mildew. So our cameras can detect the algorithm for powdery mildew on plants pre-spore and post. So we can target those plants that are most susceptible. In many of our grow operations, we've been able to identify microenvironments within their grow operation so that they can focus whether they need to, decrease the level of humidity in those microenvironments, whether they need to increase airflow by adding fans, whether they need to change their HVAC settings. We've had a lot of growers that have issues with humidity spikes due to their HVAC kicking on and kicking off, depending on their physical location. In wetter environments like I have up in Oregon, that's a big issue for me. Powdery mildew is a big issue. So when we look at what it looks like to the human eye, obviously we all know what that looks like. It's white. It's got the the different the fuzz and all that. But when it's not visible on this powdery mildew sample taken, you can see the white dots, the white spots of the visible powdery mildew on the right. And the reason we have this image in here is because you can see how far it is spread beyond what the human eye can see. And we want people to see that the PM, well, it's obvious in the white spots. It's actually all over the top and underside of the leaf. So our cameras can see that. Obviously, anybody can see it when it turns white, but our cameras can see it pre-spore so that you can treat it, cure it, or cull it before it spreads. Does that make sense?
I love it. Yeah, I mean, this just helps you stay on top of your game.
Yeah, it helps you target what you're doing. It helps you target your labor. It helps you target your inputs. It helps you make sure that you're focusing your attention on those plants that need it while letting your other ones grow free. So let's talk about spider mites. Let's talk about pests. So when we look at spider mites, we have a huge issue with spider mites in Oregon. I'm sure a lot of people do. We also have an issue with everything from russet mites to stink bugs to you name it. We've got the issue up here. So we have a large agriculture area up here. So a lot of our grow operations are in agriculture areas, greenhouses, many indoors and outdoor. So even the outdoor operations have large cloning operations on their fields, so they have the same issues. So when we're looking for pests, a lot of people say, how are you seeing pests? A lot of spider mites, aphids, they're living underneath the plant. How are you seeing those? That's why we have leaf flippers. Well, long story short is, but what we also look for and what we do most is we look for their signatures. All pests have a different way of eating, of living off the plant. We have spider mites that like to stifle the underneath of the plant. You got russet mites that like to eat pinpoint holes. So we can actually pick out those signatures because the spectral image of the plant itself will change once that happens. Once the pests start eating through the plant, they change the spectral code, and we can pick up the pattern of those spider mites and the russet mites and the aphids that are eating through the underneath tissue. That's what you see in this image. You see the different colorations on the right side. You see the different pieces. Our cameras pick those up from above. So in effect, they're looking through the leaf and looking at the fact that light is now penetrating further through that leaf. So that shows that there's something that has eaten away the tissue in the bottom of the leaf. Does that make sense?
Fascinating.
Okay. Yeah, because obviously we can't see through anything. We're not X-ray. People ask us if we're X-raying their plants. That's not what we're doing. We're merely looking for the signature of those different anomalies. So we'll look for things like, we'll look for the spectral code of the waste trail of pests, as they leave different trails across the top of the leaves. Outdoor growers have big issues with slugs. We don't do outdoor right now, but we can pick up the trail of, the slug trail as it comes in. We can show you where they're coming from. Different technologies can pick up different types of waste left by the spider mites. Ours can pick that up. We can look for the pheromone trail if that's something. If we're looking for, where they're actually infesting from, where they're coming into your grow operation from, we can find that too. We did an operation about a year ago in which we were doing a facility review, and we actually picked up russet mites crawling across the floor of a large warehouse on the back of a stink bug.
No way.
Yeah. So it was fun. The computer picked it up, said there's an issue here. Couldn't quite tell what it was. We put it through the algorithm, and we ended up finding out that it was russet mites on a stink bug. So it was pretty interesting because they claimed that they didn't have any issues with bugs, with russet mites, with spider mites, and they didn't, but they were going to because they were surrounded by agriculture. So now we know how russet mites like to vector into grow operations. It's on the back of other bugs.
Wow.
So on to the next slide. What's that?
I have a quick question here, just in general. So, I mean, is there a different algorithm for different pests? Is that what you guys have really come up with, or is it kind of one size fits all?
No, we write different algorithms for different pests. Every biologic has a different spectral code. So spider mites look different than russet mites. Russet mites look different than stink bugs. They all look, fungus gnats look different than fleas. So everything looks different. So we write the algorithms not only for the pests, but also the damage and the trails that the pests leave. So yeah, everything we get, we partnered with a lab up in Washington that brings in different samples, and we write algorithms. If we have a grow down in Texas that has a certain type of bug that they're really dealing with on a regular basis, we can get a sample of that. We can send it to our lab. We then using hyperspectral imagers. We then grab the spectral code and we write the algorithms based around that.
Wow. And so because you've got these codes already developed, when you go into a facility, you don't have to wait to capture 100,000 images to start to create your algorithms. You already can come in pinpointing, knowing what to look for right out of the gates in the first image you capture. Is that right?
Yes, on a lot of them. It just also depends. There's some dependencies upon that. Some plants, depending, will image a little bit differently because, again, every cannabis plant has a little different spectral code. Every hemp plant also. They're generally the same. But as soon as we capture something, then we have that in the AI. We use the Amazon AI, and then it gets captured, and then we can pick it up from there on out.
This is just so neat.
But yeah, we have a database of these codes. Yeah, and then we call it our end user library. We keep it, and so that's the other beautiful thing about technology is every grower benefits from every other grower without even knowing who those growers are. As we build the database, as more anomalies get detected, everybody benefits from that. But there's no sharing of data. There's no sharing of technology. There's no sharing of information. Every grower's information is their own. Everything from the images that we take to the data that we collect, that is not shared out with any other growers. What we do use it for is to develop the algorithm so that everybody can benefit. Because you may have a completely clean facility. I know one grower that's never had a PM issue, ever, and that's great. But if he ever did, it wouldn't need us to detect it in his grow and then write an algorithm for it. We already have that in the database, so he benefits from other growers who have already had PM in their operations.
Great. So neat.
So another key indicator we use is plant health. This is probably our #1 technology that people are utilizing right now. Is regardless of the anomaly, whether it's powdery mildew, brown fungus, Texas brown fungus. We even know now that tobacco mosaic virus is making the jump into hemp and cannabis. So regardless of what those different anomalies are, they all impact the health of the plant. Root rot, fungus gnats, any type of anomaly on the plant reacts negatively to that. So when we do that, we know that, then we can tell the grower immediately whether their plants are healthy or not healthy and whether they need to take action now or they have time. To give you an example, yesterday we took an image of a plant section, and then as the camera came back about an hour later, it noticed that the plant was now not healthy. An hour before, it was perfectly healthy. The computer didn't flag it. Came back an hour later, and the plant was unhealthy. We then contacted the grower. He pulls up his dashboard. He looks at it and realizes that he's got a stress issue, and he's able to send he wasn't even on site at the time. He was off-site. He was able to send his grower into that room to determine what the issue was with that plant. It ended up being that it was a stress issue due to irrigation, but they were able to send his growers in there immediately rather than waiting for his grower to go back into the next day or two and see it physically manifesting to his human eye. So they were able to deal with the stress immediately rather than 48 hours from now. So plant health is a huge issue that we keep an eye on at all times. So the image there, you see plants with pH and iron issues. We can determine that they are, in this particular image, was a plant that looked completely healthy. It was green, it was vibrant, everything else. The image on the right, you'll see there's severe issues with health on the spectrum side. Our computer was able to determine that was a pH and iron issue. They went in there, checked the pH issue of their fertigation system, and realized their pH was extremely high in that fertigation system. They lowered the pH. Hour later, the plants were perfectly healthy again.
That's so crazy.
So this next image is the same thing. This was actually a mother room. The mothers had their bucket. They grow in buckets in this room. Their mothers are all kept in large buckets. They had changed the water. The day before, the mothers were all wonderful. They went in, changed the water in all their mother buckets. The computer automatically picked it up, said, we have an issue. It became up to a pH issue. We call them up. They went in there, checked, and the person who had filled the buckets hadn't balanced the pH in any of the buckets, and all the plants were at about a 7.8. So the computer picked that up immediately. So we can pick up errors in how your employees are, managing your plants, and you don't even have to be there. You can log into your dashboard at any time, look at your plants, look at what we're doing, look at how they're responding, and I mean, for lack of a better term, you can be your own big brother for your employees. So I put this in here because I wanted to show people what our cameras see when they see plants that are growing healthy and growing poorly. This is what our camera sees. Our camera sees on the left plants growing poorly. We can tell you which plants are growing poorly. We can tell you which sections. We can tell you, the plants 2, 3, and 4 in tray 6 are growing poorly. The other plants are growing fine. Enable you to go in and maybe look at your fertigation system, look at your irrigation system. Maybe you'll find out you've got an emitter. If you have a drip system, maybe your emitters are plugged due to the salts and the nutrients. And then the plants on the right are growing perfectly healthy. The next slide you'll also see plants, very healthy plants growing. We keep an image on that. And people ask, well, why do you look at plants that are growing healthy? Well, we look at plants that are growing healthy because we want to know what your plants look like when they're 100% healthy so that you can say, okay, this nutrient mix, this light schedule, this plant medium is working for this plant. So tracking when your plants are unhealthy is great, and it really helps you track, but also knowing what you're doing when your plants are very healthy enables you to codify your recipes. It enables you to codify what you guys are doing labor-wise, tracking your plants, all those different pieces. So knowing your plants are unhealthy is important, but knowing when they're healthy is just as important. The value in any of these grow operations down the road isn't necessarily that you have a license and that you've got space to grow. And it's not even the fact that you have a grower that's really good at what they're doing. The value comes down to codified recipes and strain analytics so that if you sell your grow operation down the road, the person coming in isn't reliant just upon your one grower knowing what they're doing. If you've codified your recipes, you've shown them data that us growing in this way using these nutrients at this time frame shows very healthy plants, we can enable you to give them actual true data that what you're doing is actually working. Did I explain that in a way that makes sense?
Very well.
Okay. All right. So one other thing we do offer, facility and employee monitoring. I talked a little bit earlier. We work with some real estate groups. We work with some investors. We'll go in and we'll image full facilities before they put their operations in to find out what the issues they may be facing before they build. We can take pictures outside. Here's a good example. We did this for a greenhouse grower up in Washington. He was having huge issues with his cannabis plants inside with botrytis. We went outside of his operation. We imaged outside, and basically what was happening is he was drawing air in, wasn't filtering it properly, but he was drawing it in from the north side of his greenhouse, which happened to be a large berry patch. Well, we all know that botrytis loves berries, so it's coming in the air and it's going right into his facility. So by imaging around him, he knew where it was going, he knew where it was coming from, he made the proper decisions and fixed the issue. But unfortunately, not before losing a $2 million crop. Oh. So he brought us in a little bit too late. But again, he won't make that mistake again. So we can look at things like contamination on the floors and the wall vents. We can look at contamination in your dehumidifiers. We can look at anything you need us to look at to see what you're having issues with. We can look at light spectrum. At the bottom there, you'll see some T5 lights. This was actually in my operation. I had bought, we were doing a sidelight test, so we had bought brand new T5 and T5 bulbs. We bought the T5s from the local grow shop, and they happened to come from China. If you look at that picture, you'll see that half of the bulbs were not putting out any sort of growth spectrum at all. To the human eye, they looked perfectly fine. They looked, you know, they were fresh out of the package, bright white, great. Once we took these spectral images, you'll see there's 3 different colorations. You can see which bulbs are producing and which ones are not. It's very important for many growers to figure that out early, because if you're wasting time and money on lights that aren't producing spectrum, all that does is impact, you know, your yield and quality of your product, obviously. And that upper right-hand picture is a contamination. This person was covered in pollen. Obviously, you don't want that person walking into your grow operation. So, you know, let that person walk into your flower room and all of a sudden you've got big issues. So we can look at those types of problems for growers too.
How do you set those up? How is your imaging set up to be able to check people? And then how would you go through and just, you know, look at this technology? And I think it's great to be able to look at buildings for you, do any construction as well. I didn't realize that you guys had that ability. And for all my projects, we'll be talking, because that makes a lot of sense to kind of cover your butt before you even think about constructing, so you can really make sure you're starting with a good clean slate versus locking something in there that could potentially get unleashed or unlocked, and then you're gonna not gonna fare well once that happens. And so
so we have a handheld version of our camera that we utilize. Currently, we're the ones that use it right now, but we are developing one for retail sale. Currently, we're the ones who use it right now when we do our facility reviews, and it's the same technology. We take the images, we upload them into our system. It runs through the AI, picks up any anomalies, and then we develop a report for the end consumer. It can, you know, we've had people who have pulled out of real estate deals because of it. We've had other ones who have just changed how they're going to do their cleaning of their current facility. I suggest it for anybody who's buying anybody's facility or current grow operation that they would utilize it, because the last thing you want to do is spend a couple $1 million on a grow operation and realize that it is literally filled with PM, black mold, brown fungus, whatever it might be. So there's a lot of legacy issues in these grow operations. You know, California has extremely strict black mold rules. A lot of the states are starting to adopt those same levels of rules in regards to mold. Last thing you want to do is start growing cannabis in a facility that has black mold that then gets dragged into your HVAC systems or on your feet or on your hands, because you can't paint over black mold. It just comes straight through. So, yeah, we do all of those different using our handheld technology.
Well, that doesn't scare you. That scares the hell out of me. We're looking at purchasing a grow facility now, and it's existing, and I need to get this technology in there to tell me, you know, maybe I can get a reduction on the price because of how contaminated it is. So no contamination, you know.
Well, and not only that, maybe you can get them to, you know, pay what needs to be paid in order to have it cleaned up. This can all be cleaned up. You know, we're starting to work with a group in Australia that's doing black mold remediation of facilities like this. But in order to do black mold remediation, you need to know where to start. You need to know where to look. You need to know where it's coming from. So, you know, we can come in there and, you know, and help you target your resources and figure out a little better on what that's going to cost you. So people ask us, you know, what do we have? What do our systems look like? Obviously, in order to get the full benefit, our system needs to be not only in your clone rooms, but in your veg and flower rooms. I'll give you an example in my operation. All of my clones get imaged prior to flipping them to flower. My rooms all have 2 cameras in each room that go back and forth imaging when my lights first turn on. They image halfway through the day, and they image right before the lights turn off. And then I get a report based upon that. And then I also have them in my flowering rooms. Now, I image all of my veg plants before I flip them to flower. And the reason I do that is I want to make sure that every single vegetative plant is healthy before I flip it to flower, so that when I flip it, it's not stressed and therefore has a higher propensity to hermaphrodite on me. So unless all of my plants are healthy, we don't flip it. Or if I do have an unhealthy plant, I may pull it out, go ahead and flip the other ones, get the other one healthy. It may take me a day or so figuring out what the issue might be, whether it's a nutrient issue, whatever it might be. And then once, she's healthy, then I'll put her back in. But I do not flip my rooms to flower until I've imaged them all and determined their health status. And then we image all the way through flowering. We can help you determine, based upon what your needs are, when your best times to harvest are. We can look at the amount of growth that's happening in your top colas to tell you if they're still growing vibrantly or if they're starting to turn, so it's more time that you can start harvesting. We can look at your canopy levels. We can look at the size of your canopy. We can monitor how fast plants are or are not growing for you. One of the things we do for some growers is they're looking at different nutrient mixes. So, okay, I want to change a new nutrient. So we've had nutrient companies come to us and want to do side-by-side testing. We can tell you within an hour or so whether a plant is responding positively or negatively to a new nutrient mix. So what does that mean? What that means is that you don't have to do a full growth cycle under a new nutrient mix to see what your results are. You can image them and tell pretty quickly, within an hour or so, how they're responding to your new nutrient mix. Now, I don't know for you, but for me, that's a big deal. I did switch nutrients a little while back based upon this technology, and I just did a side-by-side test of 9 plants and just imaged them throughout. I was able to tell immediately which nutrient mix was working best for which strain, and that's the one I went with. So as we're looking at the pieces that we can offer, I talked a little bit ago about the clone imager. That's called our clonalizer. It comes with a table, camera, Samsung tablet, clone health monitoring, and all associated software. That's our start in just to get going. And then we have our room imagers. The room imagers, we have some growers that have one room imager because they've only got one room with a high ceiling. Other ones, we're doing an installation of 80 cameras in a rack system up in Canada. So we can put anywhere from 1 to 100 to 200 cameras, depending on the size of the operation, in order to cover all of your plants. The room imagers the clonalizer goes through the tablet. The room imagers actually go up through the cloud and through our AI, through the algorithms, and then back to the grower on their dashboard. And then the bottom one, the facility and employee monitoring, that's a fixed mount camera in a fixed location that looks at the employee monitoring one is a fixed camera, and then the facility monitoring is a handheld camera.
How often? So on your clone imager, it's stationary, right? So it's you're moving clone trays underneath it to capture an image. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it's set on a table. We provide you with the arm. It's a set spot. You can, depending on how you do your trays, you can image 1 to 3 trays at a time. The image comes up on your tablet, and you go through the tray and throw out the clones that are doing badly and keep the ones that are doing well and move them on. We've got large clone art. We don't care if you take 1 image or 2,000 images. It doesn't matter. It's all through the same system. It is extremely easy to use. There's really no learning curve. The computer literally tells you, the tablet tells you G or B, red or green, good or bad. And it's gridded out depending on how you do your clones. We've got large hemp cloning operations that do it in big 200 cube trays. We've got other, cannabis that are working out of the 55 trays or the 70 trays, whatever they are. And so we grid it out depending on what the grower's type of cloning operation is. And then that is just something they use. Most growers will start imaging their clones after about the 4th day, after they've gotten over the shock of cut and transplant. And then they'll image them. We have some that image them every day through moving to veg, and other ones that will image them, like at the 7th day, the 14th day, and then right prior to transfer. We've got actual cloning operations out there that use our imagers to provide a guarantee to their customers. They will take an image prior to sending the clones out to their customers and providing that all the clones that when they were sent out were healthy. So that's a good thing for the actual end user because they're getting a tray of good clones that are 100% healthy. But it's also good for the cloner too because it reduces their amount of returns. When they send them out and they're complete, they get a clean bill of health. the customer signs for them and takes them, the cloner doesn't have a whole lot of control of what the grower does with them at that point. They may sit on a shelf for 4 or 5 days before they get transplanted, may not be watered properly, may not be lit properly, and then the clones start dying off, and all of a sudden they're coming back to the cloner saying, hey, you sold me bad clones. Well, with our imaging software, they can show that when the clones were picked up, they were 100% healthy, and therefore the issues are more potentially on the grower side.
Okay, what do you see as some of the current challenges with this, with getting people to adopt the technology and the technology in general?
It's new to this industry. It's not new to agriculture. That's something I really like to stress. Our company alone has been in large agriculture for the last 8 years. So it's not new to agriculture. It's new to cannabis and hemp. So really for us, the biggest challenge is getting people to understand the technology and understand that this technology is not more labor, it's less labor. Oftentimes people look at technology like, oh, I've got this big learning curve, I'm going to have to figure it all out, I'm going to have to implement it, I'm going to have to do new processes and systems. And what we like to stress is that's not the case. We've made our system extremely user-friendly. Our system, you know, people ask us all the time, well, what's the benefit? What's the ROI? The ROI is immediate because you're immediately going to be using this technology to make sure that you have better plants in the beginning. But in order for us to, the biggest challenge we have is people want to see it, which is why things like this are extremely important. People want to see it operating. People want to see it in their operation before they go spend a lot of money, which is why we do things like a starter pack where we'll do the clone table and a couple of fixed mounted room imagers so we can image their operation, show them real life data that they can work on, and then we can work on a scaled implementation into their full facility. So you don't have to just put our whole system in your whole grow and, you know, have a large capital outlay in the beginning. We can come in for relatively inexpensive and do the installation of the clone camera and the 2 room imagers and show you immediately what the benefits are.
You said you can get that ROI on this from usually 1 or 2 harvests, you're back in the black, right? Yep. You're out of the red on it because
yep.
The value
yeah,
of
our company, our company, kind of our motto is, you know, I mean, we're in the cannabis industry. We're a grower. We understand that, you know, the market fluctuates as new markets open up and, you know, the price comes down in price per pound and you got to watch your labor costs, because that's really our cost benefit is the reduction in labor and the targeting of labor and making sure you're spending money in the right way. So we like to say that as the price comes down, we want to be the last thing you want to get rid of, not the first thing. So our price point is extremely manageable. We're a SaaS. It's a monthly fee. It's based upon canopy square footage, actual canopy covered, not total canopy, just your canopy square footage. We keep our hardware cost extremely low. Obviously, it depends on, you know, how many cameras, the size of the operation, the technicality of the installation. It's always easier for us to install earlier before plants are in rooms rather than later, but we can do either. So the price, we have kept it very manageable so that people can use our technology even when cannabis prices have come down.
Well, I mean, it's hard to argue when the ROI is that quick, especially the value that you get out of this, considering, you know, just like you said, starting from your clone stock alone, starting with bad plant stock will perpetuate the problem all the way through that, whether you're taking 120 days or 90 days or 65 days to grow this plant out, you really can set yourself back. And as you look through the whole process and workflow, and what you mentioned earlier about these folks that had 20 scouts, now they're down to 5, what does that do to your bottom line alone? That's tremendous amount of labor savings right there that you just can't even touch. And 2, out of those 20 people, how effective are they really? Meaning, were they fighting with their wife or their husband that day before they came to work? Were they hungover? Were they pissed off at the manager because they got to go walk the floor and they'd rather be, emailing somebody? And so all of these things you in the equation when this camera shows up ready to work every day. It doesn't complain.
Exactly.
It doesn't call in sick. It does its job to a T, and the value alone, it just outweighs, not using it.
Yeah. Well, and one of the other things we like to point out to people, as this industry expands, there's more and more investors, there's more and more, owners that are, take American Cannabis. You guys have operations in numerous states. You've got financial stakes in a lot of different areas, and it's hard to keep track of all the different moving parts. Our dashboard enables you to look at all your different operations and know what's happening in real time. It's risk mitigation. It enables you to stay engaged with your growers in various states without having to physically fly out there and see what's going on. Or worse yet, waiting until a really bad yield comes in and then trying to backtrack and figure out what happened and why. So this is real-time information. This is risk mitigation. This is labor savings. This is increases in yield, increases in quality. Just the fact that when we're looking at plant health, let's take plant health for example. If we flip the flower and let's say 2 weeks in we have an irrigation issue, let's say an emitter line gets plugged, we may not see that physically with the human eye for anywhere, depending on the plant, 24 to 72 hours, let's say, to where it's really impacting. Okay, we have a severe problem. So then you figure it out. It may take you the day to figure out what's going on, and then you fix it. And then it takes another 3 days for the plant to heal itself back to where it's back into flower. Technically, some people look at it this way, I do, technically I've lost about a week of flower time in that point. That plant or those plants are going to have a decrease in yield due to that anomaly. Well, if I can catch that, we catch water issues within hours. When a plant starts starving of water or nutrients, the plant manifests it first by pulling all the water and nutrients in from your fan leaves and pulling them towards the core. Our cameras pick that up immediately. So now you can make a decision and mitigate it in hours rather than days or weeks. That's a huge issue when you're trying to have a consistent quality product that you're taking to market. When your bottom line is based upon yield and quality and THC levels and CBD levels, you want to make sure those plants are as healthy as possible for as long as possible. And taking a week out of that 8 to 10 week cycle is a huge impact. So not only do we increase your yield by making sure that your plants are healthy from the very beginning, we increase your yield and quality of product to making sure they're healthy throughout the whole process.
Yeah, I look at business and running grows from key performance indicators and setting benchmarks. And when you go into a sophisticated facility that's using the right technology to check temperature and humidity, CO2 levels, all of these different things, light levels, you already have all these sensors in place, and you've got all of these, you kind of have set your high and low parameters, and you've got notifications to let you know when those things get out of range. Why the hell don't you have technology telling you this component as well? You've got notifications telling you that your lights went out. You got notifications telling you that your temperature is too high. You got all these things. To me, without knowing this plant component, you're missing a big piece of being able to be successful in losing your business. And understanding that you've got this down to a cost that is not going to break your bank, that you can get the ROI pretty quickly on it. You really see the value of technology where we are today.
Even in our larger operations, to give you, it's hard to give a price point because everybody's facility is different. I'll give you an example. Most of our operations, cost-wise, on a monthly basis, is less than the cost of one employee. Well, when you take into account some of our larger operations are saving themselves 5, 10, 15 employees by using our equipment, you understand what the ROI is extremely quick. And that's not even counting into the fact of what the increase in yield and quality is. And that's not even taking into account the fact that you're going to be codifying your strain analytics and your recipes for if and when down the road you sell your operation to another company. That's where the value comes in. The value is not in the fact that you've got the best grower on the West Coast, because that grower could be recruited away. Your value in your cannabis operation is the physical stock, recipes, strain analytics, and the actual infrastructure that you have in place. We want to be the backbone of that infrastructure. We want to be the one that codifies that for you and creates that intellectual property that has the true value. IP is where your value is at.
100%. And with this technology, that master grower can go anywhere he wants to and leave any day because you can bring in somebody else, train him on the process and procedure, and
there you go.
Nothing missed a beat at all versus putting everything in the hands of your grower. Yeah.
And in addition, a lot of owners are the growers, and they're going to, they're looking for investments, they're looking to expand, they're looking to, start co-oping with other growers. Being able to walk into an investor with an actual IP strategy, with actual strain analytics and recipes that are backed by images and true data from the sensors through our dashboard, it's a much easier sale than just going in there and saying I grow really good weed.
I hate it when they say that.
So, when we look at the total package, we look at what we provide and what we can do for you. When we look at the fact that we can, on the dashboard, we can integrate in your sensors, or we have we have sensor partners. We've in the last couple of weeks, we've inked some very good. We're going to be doing some press on this quickly about some strategic partnerships that we've inked with some larger companies on the quality control side, on the quality review side, on some some distribution pieces. We have the ability to integrate in with whatever technology is already in place. You have a big Argus vertigation, that's fine. We can integrate into that. It takes time and to work the API and all that, but we can do that. We've made sure that our technology works seamlessly with the other technologies already in your operations.
Okay, that's important because there's 25 different hardware, software programs that are being run out there as far as farm management goes, and understanding environmental controls and having that open API will make a big difference, meaning that anyone has access to it and can utilize it on their system. So I think that's great. You guys have opened that up in that way.
Yeah. Well, we don't want to be just another cog in the wheel. We don't want to be something that people look like, oh, how am I going to integrate this? This is going to be more more labor for me. So we want to be seamless. We want to be something that just becomes what they rely upon on a daily basis. I tell growers we've done a really good job through the years of looking at everything happening around the plants. We look at everything going into the plant. We look at everything coming out of the plant. We look at everything around the plant, from the air to the humidity levels to the nutrients. What we have never done is actually look at the plant itself. And we're the ones who are actually looking at the plant itself, because that's the end product. If we're not looking at the plant itself, then what's the point? We're rolling the dice every grow operation, every cycle. We're just rolling the dice and hoping that it works. Well, as in any industry, as it matures, we have to get better and more consistent with our quality and quantity, and that's what our system enables you to do.
The humans are really good at going in and growing plants, but they're not as good as this technology. They can't see issues like this camera can. And when you look at it from that perspective, sure, your people have a place in the business, but so does this technology. And
oh yeah.
When utilized correctly, you tag team them together and run parallel, and you can be a rock star in the space and really just outperform your competitors. And to me, this is what it's all about. You've got to run a sustainable business model. You've got to understand your cost of goods sold. You've got to reduce problems and issues, and you've got to throw everything you can at it as far as technology to help. And it's a no-brainer in my eyes. And just really going through this today really hits home even more why it's important for me to really buy into this and get all my projects into this technology, because it's a no-damn-brainer.
Yeah. Well, and one other thing I like to say, because I have 2 growers in my operation, and I love growing. I've been growing for a while here. I love it. This is not a replacement to a grower by any stretch of the imagination. This is an augmentation and a codifier of what your grower is actually doing. All this is data for your grower to show that what they're doing is right. And hey, if something goes wrong, then we can fix it, and now they won't make that mistake again. So we are augmenting what the growers are doing. We are in no way, shape, or form trying to replace what growers are doing, because we can't. The human eye is extremely important. Going in, looking at the plants, determining what we're dealing with, but all we're doing is providing them the data and the information they need to make better, more informed decisions on how they move forward.
Hallelujah. I love it. I've been waiting for this to come into this space here. This is super exciting. I got some questions here from the audience. You mind if I fire away with a couple of them?
Go for it.
Is Emerald Metrics only a service provider, or do they sell their technology for others looking to get into this space?
Right now, we are only a service provider. We are looking for strategic partners around the U.S. On both the sales side and the implementation side, and the customer integration side. So, but no, we're not. We are purely right now doing the service.
Okay. Here's another question, and I'm going to add to this. So earlier, and you mentioned that your cameras are really primarily for indoors, but you do take them outside, but not necessarily to shoot plants as far as cannabis or hemp, but more or less just to shoot the surrounding area. And the question is, do the cameras work on an outdoor cultivation? And so I'll let you explain that.
Yeah, so the issues with outdoor cultivation, so obviously we have done outdoor. We were imaging millions of acres of corn, wheat, and soy on planes 10,000 feet up the air. The issue you have with outdoor cultivation is that once the images are taken, because they are multispectral, they high res, we have to then strip out all of the environmentals. For example, we're working with a grower in Southern Oregon. We're actually going to image his hemp operation. So we have to go down there, and if we take images in the summer when they always have forest fires, we then have to strip out all the different components of the smoke in the air in order to see what's truly happening with that plant. So it's a much larger process than it is indoors. Indoors are controlled environments. We know what the environmentals are. We know what the lighting is. The lighting is consistent, whereas outdoor you've got cloudy days. You've got the sun at different levels. So we have to calibrate the cameras pretty much on a daily basis outdoor, or indoor, once they're calibrated, they're calibrated. So there's outdoor challenges. We are working with some strategic partners about outdoor for specific health issues, not necessarily anomaly detection, more just health, but that's not our focus. Our focus right now is indoor and greenhouse.
Okay, thank you. And then here's another question here is, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes here, so we'll kind of get to wrapping this up. And this will kind of add into this last question here. As the question is, where do they get the actual prices? And also, too, just in general, how can our audience find, Emerald Metrics? How can they understand your technology? How can they get quotes from you? And how can they work with you guys? And so with that last question, where can you get actual prices? I'll let you kind of answer that in a whole there.
Yeah, so at the end of this slide is her name is Kelly Shirazi. She's our director of sales. She handles all the context, all the price quoting, all the different pieces. When we do pricing, we base it upon what does the implementation look like, how many cameras, what kind of cameras, long, short throw, whatever the pieces might be. So the first thing is an exploratory call to find out what kind of operation that they're working with, and then we go from there. It's usually a call with Kelly starting, and then I usually get on and talk with the growers and the owners, and then we put a proposal together. It's pretty seamless, very painless, and can usually be done in 1 or 2 phone calls.
Perfect. Okay. Got another one just kind of popped in. Let's see what this one says here. Would cooperation with medical cannabis producers from Germany be of interest for implementation of your technology?
Yes.
I'm sure you'd jump all over that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the reason I say that is because we've been working with medical groups for a long time. The medical growers have a lot higher standard in many countries in which they must meet in order to, say that their cannabis is medical quality. So many of them in different countries have different requirements that maybe the rec growers don't have. So we do work with medical growers, and we're working with international groups also. Our cameras are able to, to be utilized in just outside the U.S., Canada, Europe, South America, it doesn't matter. And our light rail systems, we develop them so they can work on various power sources in different countries. So yes, we are very interested in working with people from outside of the U.S. and on the medical side.
Perfect. Okay, well, Rob, to kind of wrap this up, I just want to give you the floor to make any last comments that you have, and I can't thank you again today for getting on, so feel free to make any last closing comments.
No, I mean, if anybody has any other questions, like I said, Kelly's information is at the bottom of this. My email is pretty simple. It's just rob@emeraldmetrics.com. If you have any questions or you'd like to talk about it and see if it's a fit for you, feel free to reach out to us. You can go to emeraldmetrics.com, and you can also download this PDF from the resources section on the webcast. They've made that available to you too, so you can show it to the other people in your group, and we can start the conversation.
Great. Well, I want to thank our audience for tuning in today. Greatly appreciate it. Keep an eye out as this will be up live in the next week, and you can watch this and listen to this again. We'll have all the slides up. My name is Ellis Smith. I am the host. We want to thank our sponsor, Cannabis Tech for putting on the webcast today. We had Rob McCorkle in today from Emerald Metrics. The topic was beyond what the eyes can see. We appreciate everyone coming in. Rob, once again, thank you for coming on.
Thank you, Ellis. We appreciate it.
Everyone have a great day, and we'll see you next time with American Cannabis.